I need to talk to some of you because some of you, I'm not quite sure you're really a business owner. I really think that it's more of like some job that you have, but you get to say you're a business owner. Hey, badass business owners, my name is Tammy and I'm here to help you grow your business, but more importantly, grow those profits. And you're probably wondering, what am I talking about? You see, I come across a lot of different business owners, whether it's out in the wild, whether it's through coaching, through bookkeeping, whatever the case may be. And there is a group of business owners that reach out to me. You know, sometimes it's because of the podcast or the show or whatever, but they reach out to me and they want to grow their business. They want to figure out why they're not making money. They want to figure out why they just don't have any money in the bank. There's a lot of questions that they have. But there's a whole group of folks that really stand out. And those folks stand out and they fall into this category that I guess I would say are more of dabblers, if you will, right? They say they're a business owner. They say they own X, Y, or Z business. They feel as if they are, but the reality is the actions that they're taking day after day are not those of a business owner. They are somebody who treats it more like a way to make money for a job. It's like, oh, I need X amount, so, I'm going to go make that. Or, at one point they realize I'm not making enough to cover my bills. And what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the characteristics that I'm seeing with some of these folks. They may or may not have all of them, but I want you to look in the mirror. Because I think that there's some of you that are listening right now that may be in this category and not even realize you're in this category. So what would be some of those things? Well, the first one is where you kind of like you're working, but you have no idea what your numbers are. And you knew this was going to be in there, so I'm just going to rip the Band-Aid off first and foremost. And I'm not asking you to memorize things. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you start asking somebody, any kind of questions whatsoever to do with their business. And if it's outside of the technician piece of it, they really do not have any answers to any of those kinds of questions. Well, do you know what kind of sales you did last week? Not really. Or they'll have a number and it's so not right. Well, do you know how much money you did last month? Well, no, not really. Do you know if you paid your taxes last year? I think I did. I'm not sure. Well, do you know what you're going to do this? Well, no. Well, how is it that you stay on top of your customers? Well, I don't really have a follow-up system. So let me get this straight. We don't have a plan. We don't know what we've done. We don't know where we're going, and we don't have the first clue as to what we're making. But here's the funny part. Almost all of them say they are a business owner. And yeah, they've got some LLC or they've got some solopreneur, but honestly, is that really a business owner? Or is that somebody who clocks into work, does their job, and goes home every day? That's kind of where I would put it. And I'm not trying to slam you. I'm really not. I'm just trying to get your head around the fact of, do you really want to own a business? Owning a business is not easy because it's above and beyond you doing the technician side of what it is that you do. Okay? I don't care if you pick up dog poop, you're a plumber, you're an electrician, you're a dentist, you're a dog groomer, you are a landscaper, you own a candle company, you own a ice cream shop. I don't care. I don't really care what it is that you own. And I'm not talking about any specific ones of my people. Please know that if you're listening right now, because these are just people that I run into all the time. People that don't necessarily hire me, but they're people that call me out or reach out to me or whatever the case may be. Or I run into them, like I said, out in the wild and we just start talking about business because that's what I do. These are common things that I see. It's like, I want to be excited for them because I am. I love small business owners. But when you start asking the questions and they don't know, that gets hard. But here's the thing. If you don't know, you don't know, right? Because we all can flip the switch and start wanting to learn. What cracks me up is when I run into people who don't care. It's like you try getting them. No, yeah, okay, I know, I get your point. I see, I understand. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like I want to grab them and I just want to shake them to say, do you understand the gold mine that you're sitting on? There's times when I'm talking to people and they're doing pretty good. They're doing good, in spite of everything else that they're doing. And I just want to tell them, I was like, oh my God, you think you're doing great? You are. Oh my God, do you understand you could double what it is that you do just by getting involved and understanding your business a little bit better? just by really knowing what's happening. But what they're doing is they just chase, and usually they're chasing sales and not really understanding, are those sales profitable? All they know is they can pay their bills. And that's really the gauge a lot of people use, is they can pay their bills. Now, here's another one, because we're at the time of me doing this, we are in tax season, right? One of the things that stands out to me is when I'm talking with somebody and their number one focus is how much they paid in taxes. They're so upset by how much they paid in taxes. And I get it. None of us like to pay taxes. I know when I'm going to be doing mine, and I hate the fact of how much money I have to give up in taxes. There's nothing wrong with hating the fact that you have to pay on taxes. But here's the rub. There are people that will not grow their business because they do not want to pay taxes. They don't want to pay more in taxes. And I'm just like, wait a minute. When you pay taxes and you pay more taxes, it means because you're making more money. You're not giving every dollar you make to the government. So it's like saying, hey, don't give me that $10 because I'm only going to be able to keep 7 of it. What? Take the 7. I get it. But it's not like I'm giving you $10 more in sales and you're giving up all 10. You're giving up 20%, 20 cents of, or whatever. I'm not even doing my math right. I'm so ticked off about it, right? But if you give people the money, they're only taking a certain percentage of that. And that percentage is not the same for everybody because it depends upon your entire situation, right? It could be 10% of it. It could be 20% of it. For some of you, it might be 30% of it. But it's still, you're keeping the rest of that money. Why would you walk away from sales, walk away from profits if you don't get to, you have to give up a little of them? The problem is you guys get in your head. Once again, the reason you're in your head is this, because you actually get to see the money come out. You actually have to write the check. You actually have to go online and pay it. So it hurts more. But when somebody else is paying you, you have a job, right? They take that money out, so you never see it come out. You're focused on the fact that, yeah, my check was $2,500. But what you're not realizing is it started over $3,000. Then you might be a little bit more upset, right? But you don't feel the pain the same way that you do as a small business owner, because as a small business owner, you're the one that's making those payments. Whereas when you're working for somebody else, you don't see that money. So you're not associating you making more money and paying more in taxes, right? You just want that raise. You want to make more money because you're not focused on the taxes. But as small business owners, no, we're the other way. What happens is I've got so many people that, reach out to me at some point. This is more on the bookkeeping side. They'll reach out and they're all upset about the taxes and how much they have to pay in taxes. And I really have to help them understand that taxes, not necessarily a good thing, but if you have to pay more taxes, it means that your business is doing better. And that is a good thing. So we can sit here and we can debate and, somebody might come up with the one odd reason why it's the good thing. But for the majority of the people that I deal with, I promise you having to pay more in taxes is usually a really good thing. Now, let's go back to some of the things that I'm seeing with some of these people that fall into this category. They're not really trying to grow their business. Like, for example, I'll have somebody that reaches out and they do okay. It's nothing fantastic. They might be able to keep the majority of their money because they're on their own. They don't have high expenses. So they'll probably sell maybe $40,000, $50,000 by the end of the year. And they were able to keep the majority of it, right? So it's not bad. They've made a decent living. But what's interesting is when you're talking to them, they have no plan, they're like, I want to grow my business. Okay, what are you doing? And it's like crickets. There's no plan. There's no ideas. And I'm like, well, how do you get your business today? And they're like, well, usually people call me up, or somebody's heard of me. So they're trying to use the referral method, but not really actively trying to use the referral method. But they also wonder why their business doesn't grow, because that same $40,000, $50,000 is the same thing they did the year before and the year prior to that. And it might have a little bit of a blip. It might be 45 to 50 or 55 to 45, whatever. There's a little tiny range, but it's really not growing because they're not doing anything different. They're not trying to grow the business. They want it to grow, but they're not doing anything to help it. It's like wanting the plant to grow, but never watering it, and then wondering why the plant is slowly dying. The plant is slowly dying because you're not giving it any water, any nutrients, any food for it to be able to grow. And some of you guys do that with your business. Is like you kind of sit back and it's like you're waiting for someone to call you. You're twiddling your thumbs, if you will. And you're like, oh, they're going to call. I just don't understand why people aren't calling. Well, they're not calling because they don't know you exist. Right? You got to get out there. You got to get in their face. And people are getting better and better at marketing nowadays. I mean, let's face it. If we all pick up our phones, right? And we grab our phone and we sit there and we Google what it is that we're looking for, or this business in our neighborhood, or whatever the case may be, those are the people that are going to get that first shot. And, you've got to have a Google business page. And you don't even necessarily have to have a website, but you should, because that's going to help you on Google business page. But you can get those for so cheap nowadays, like pre-made for the most part. You could get it done in like 2 hours and you never have to touch it again. But it's something for Google to latch onto for yourself. So, I mean, it's like little simple basic things. So like, even if you have no business, you have 2 hours probably, because you're not busy, you probably have 2 to 3 hours to set up some of these things behind the scenes to just give you some kind of footing in the ground for people to be able to even find you. Once again, this whole conversation today, what I'm trying to do is talk about the fact that you can't sit on your butt and expect your business to grow. It doesn't work that way. You have to do something. You either have to get an online presence, you have to get out there and network and meet people, you have to follow up with people. You've got to do something, right? Because you might be able to build a basic small business by really not doing much, just through some basic word of mouth in the beginning, because people want to help you grow and get going. But you're never going to grow the type of business that you want to make. You're never going to have the profits that you want to have if you don't do something. And I'm going to go back to knowing your numbers. You got to have some kind of idea. I'm amazed when somebody only does like maybe $2,000 a month, $2-3 grand a month, and they can't even tell you that's what they did. If you ask them, what are your expenses? How much do you need a month? Well, I don't know. I'd never thought about that. How have you never thought about that? Next week, what I want to talk about is a question I get all the time, because I don't have enough time on this one. But one of the questions I get asked all the time is, hey, I'm working my butt off and I want to know how much I can pay myself. Well, here's a spoiler alert. You don't know how much to pay yourself if you don't have the first clue about what's going on inside of your business. You can't know what to pay yourself if you don't know what you've been making on a regular basis every single month. Because if you do a job and you just put it in your pocket and then you figure out what's left, that's great. That's going to get you to just survive, but it's not going to help you grow your business. Here's another one. I'll have people that want to go through, I want to know why I don't have any money and why I'm not growing my business. Okay, fine. So we look at their books and we look at what's going on, and they spend every single day, and I am not joking, every single day they're spending anywhere from $10 to $45, $50 on food. Okay, spoiler alert, you do not get to use food and use it as a write-off on your taxes. And if you're out there thinking that you get to write off this food for your business, no, you don't. Now, are there some exceptions? Yes, you need to see a CPA. I'm not a CPA, but I can tell you that the way it works is you are supposed to feed yourself every single day. Your business's job is not to feed you. Okay? You need to take that money, move it to your personal account as a draw, and then you can go have all the lunch that you want. Because I can guarantee you, some of you would never spend this much money on food. And we're talking hundreds of dollars every single week. And we're talking $1,000 plus, sometimes up to $2,000 a month just on food that is not deductible, does not help you grow your business. And it's just because you've got money in that business account and you think you can go out and go have these big meals at places. We're talking like people will go eat, all kinds of stuff. They'll have sushi one day and then they'll go out to tacos. What's funny is if you ever want to know what someone likes, you just do their books. Because I can tell you, I've got people that love tacos. I got people that love seafood. I can tell when someone's addicted to a certain drink at any kind of coffee place. I can tell you if they just love sandwiches, whatever the case may be. Chinese food, you name it. because they buy it everywhere they go. And it's not necessarily the same place. It's the same family of food because they love to get it. And then I get to tell them, just so you know, they'll go, oh, this is business. Okay, no, because if you're doing jobs in your local community, you don't get to feed yourself. Okay. And just because you take some of your people doesn't mean you get to write it all off. There's certain guidelines. Sometimes it's only 50% of what it is that you spend. Now, there are times when it is 100%. There's times when it's 50%, but the majority of what a lot of you are doing is not deductible at all. And you are spending so much money. And once again, it goes back to what I'm saying. You're not serious about growing your business, because if you were serious about becoming profitable and you were serious about growing your business, you would not be throwing away that money. You would be better off getting a $10 Happy Meal, or not Happy Meal, but you know what I mean. Get some $10 meals somewhere and then take the other 20, 30 bucks that you're spending on this food and reinvesting it back in the business to make money. Or maybe if you want an instant raise, stop going out and eating. Because some of you could get an extra $1,000 a month just by stop doing that. And, I'll be glad, there's people that when we start doing their books, trust me, they will tell you one of the first things I let them know is, hey, all of this stuff that you're saying is business meals or food. It's not. So you can keep it there and you can see it. But honestly, they're still not going to get it deducted when it comes to your taxes. And then when you go, I got to pay all these taxes. Well, you're paying all those taxes because the stuff you're spending the money on, the reason you don't have it in your account is you're spending it on food, right? So you're still going to have to pay the taxes. So not only it's like a double loss, right? You're paying all this money on taxes because you did so good on what you made, but then you turned your tax money. You didn't put it into the business. You didn't put it into your pocket. You put it into your mouth because you turned it into food. Okay. So please, whatever you do, stop thinking you get to spend all this money on food, because you don't. Now, if you travel, you go out of state, you go into other areas and their travel meals, yeah, that's different. Those can be deductible. Once again, talk to the CPA, talk to a tax person, and they can let you know exactly what is and what isn't. I'm not a tax person, but I can tell you, spoiler alert, I can ruin it for you that you aren't going to be able to spend that money. And second, why would you? I guess that's a bigger thing. Let's just say you could write it all off. Why would you spend over $1,000 every single month on lunches, as opposed to, would you do that with your personal money? Would you take the money you have in your personal checking account and would you go spend $1,000 a month on the lunches that you spend it on today? If you wouldn't, then that answers your question. Think of it that way. But here's the good thing, okay? It's fixable. All right. It is solvable. And I have watched people who were in that situation completely change their mindset. And oh my gosh, their business takes off. They start doing more business. They become more profitable. They become more engaged. And you know what the thing that they did is they started paying attention. They started going, hey, what are my numbers? That's the first thing they did is they said, all right, let's do this bookkeeping. Let's go ahead and let's figure out what's going on, right? What's interesting is so many people start their bookkeeping because we have to clean it up, right? So they'll come to me and we'll clean up the previous year, but then they just start seeing what's going on. They see where their money's going and they start paying attention. And then they start going, oh, wow, I didn't realize I could make that, or I didn't realize I was making that much money, or I didn't realize this. And all of a sudden you can see the spark go off, where they're like, oh, can we continue to do this? Because I really want to know what it is that I'm doing. And for some people, they may not pay attention right away, but after a few months of me sending them their stuff, they start paying attention. They start opening it. They start looking at it. And they're like, hey, I really want to grow my business. What do you think about this? Or, hey, I was thinking I might need to change my prices. What do you think? I love it. Those are the things that I love. And it all started because they started paying attention to the numbers. They started seeing what was going on in their business. And then what happened is a spark went off. They started to see the opportunity. They started to see how much money they could make. They started realizing that they were doing better than what they thought, but they were throwing away money on things that they shouldn't have, which goes back to like the whole the lunches and stuff like that we talked about. But not just that, they didn't have a goal. For example, we're going to be finishing February. Right now, people need to know what they did last March. Because if you're going to go into March, don't you think you should know what you did last March? Don't you think you should know what your trend is? Of course you do. That's where knowing your business numbers give you that to try to do better. Because I can promise you, if you don't know what you did last year for next month, you probably are like, I'm hoping to do this. What if you found out that last year for that same month, you blew the doors off? right? Wouldn't you want to go, wow, what did I do last year? Why did the doors get blown off? What happened? Or maybe it tanked and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not ready to tank. So did you tank the year before because of something that you did? Did something happen in the community? Was it the weather? Or did you just take your foot off the throttle, and the gas, and you just stopped? You just did horrible. I've got some people that took weeks off because of whatever. It could be something personal that was going on. It could be just that it was slow and they didn't go after business. And next thing you know, 3 weeks ran to 4 weeks, ran to 5 weeks. And it was like, oh my God, my business totally sucked last year. Well, that's going to happen if you're not paying attention to it. Once again, if you're not actively trying to grow your business has to figure out what it's going to do. And more than likely, your business is going to start dying slowly. I have this cactus in my front yard, and it's been there for a while. And the first cactus that was there, it died. And so we replaced it with this other little baby cactus, right? It's just like a little stub, and he's supposed to grow slowly. Never supposed to get really big, but he's just supposed to grow. And I've watched that little guy die. Now, he's dying. Granted, part of it's my fault, right? Because I don't go up to him and make sure he's getting the nutrients that he needs. I'm not making sure that he gets the water. I just keep egging him on. Come on, little cactus, you can do this, you can do this. And that little bugger, he just keeps dying. He just keeps dying. And all of the motivation that I give that little cactus, none of it is helping him because I'm not taking the actions to save that cactus's life. And at some point, I'll probably replace them. Now, for some of you, you might stop doing your business. You're going to replace it that way. But don't be surprised if your business is dying when you're doing nothing to grow it. And you get upset, as you should, but I want you to look in the mirror. I want you to start with the person in the mirror. Maybe your business isn't growing because of you. Maybe your business is dying because of you. Maybe you're focused on the wrong things. You can sit there and you can complain and you can wish and you can dream and you can do all of those things. But if you're not doing something, don't be surprised if the business is flatlining, not growing, or it's slowly dying because it's our fault. I've been there. I've done it. I've done it to my own business so many times. I'm doing it to one of my businesses right now. It just doesn't excite me. So, I still have business because I built a lot of things. But at the same time, as I sit back and I go, oh my God, this thing could be so much more if I just paid attention to it. And I just fed it. I just watered it. I just gave it what it needed to do. Oh my God, what could it be? Right? But that's a decision that I'm making, a conscious decision that I'm making. And then there's times I like that decision and there's times when I don't. But at least I know why it's doing that. And then there's other times when a business might be going crazy and you're like, oh my God, what happened? What did you do? I started paying attention, right? Some of you have done that. Some of you can go, yeah, I remember when my business took off. What was the biggest thing that you did? I started looking at my numbers. I started paying attention. I stopped wasting money. I started some marketing things that I needed to do. Wow. Okay. Most of you, by the way, can grow your business just by paying attention. You got to ask yourself, what part are you not paying attention to? All right, I'm going to stop rattling, but hopefully there's been a little bit of insight here where you can look deep inside and ask yourself, is my business growing or is my business dying? And am I the contributor to all of it? Am I paying attention? Am I more focused on taxes? Am I more focused on what I'm going to have for lunch today? Am I more focused on poor as me and why am I not doing business? If you are any of those things, then you're the reason you need to look. You need to understand those business numbers. You need to know what's going on. You need to start being able to say, I'm spending my money on this. Someone reached out just a couple of weeks ago and they wanted to know if their pricing was right. And I'm like, okay, we talked about the price that they were selling for. We talked about their, what their labor hours were going to be and their materials, and they were doing great. And then I said, okay, well, how much do you need a month for your expenses? Crickets. Didn't have a first clue how much money they needed. I'm like, well, your pricing kind of, when you sell everything, the money has to pay that stuff before you can pay yourself. Oh, yeah, that's right, huh? Yeah. Okay, well, don't you think you should know? Well, I think. Okay, well, you can sit there and you can rattle off, but I can guarantee you, even in your personal life, you'll go your rent or your mortgage, you'll go with your basics of food, which is never right. You'll go, oh yeah, we spend maybe $300-400 a month on food. Go dig it up. Trust me, it's a lot more, probably double that. Okay. You'll do your basics, but then you'll forget about all of the little things. If you've ever gone through and tried to figure out a budget or how much you spend every month, I know I've done this exercise, and then I think I got it and I'm like, oh, where the money's going? And then I get hit for something and I'm like, oh, there's $50. Oh, there's a medical bill. Oh, there's this. Oh, my tires. Oh, a lot of things pop up. You got to have a basic understanding of your expenses for your business just as much. Okay. So please do me a favor. I don't want you sitting in the passenger seat in your own business. I want you in the driver's seat. I want you to really know and understand where you're going and what's the plan. I don't want you just getting behind the car and driving. You got to have a destination. You got to know where you're going, and you got to know how you're going to get there. Okay? That's the biggest thing I need you to do. So yes, I am giving you a lecture today. I'm not going to lie, because we all need them from time to time. We all need kicked in our pants from time to time. That's what I want to do for you guys today. Okay? I'm telling you, there's way too many people that come to me and they're rudderless. They don't have a direction for their business. They just know they want to grow it. Start with the basics. Put your head into your business. What are you doing to grow it? What is your marketing plan? How are you getting in front of people? What is your pricing? What are your expenses? Get into those business numbers. Know how much money you're making every single month. Stop worrying about the taxes. Okay? I'm not saying ignore them. They are a big part of where your money goes. They come right off of those profits. But if you're so focused on not going from $5,000 to $6,000, you're never going to grow your business. Because yes, you might go from 5 to 6, but that also means you probably made an extra, $7,000 in your business. Wouldn't you rather have the other $7,000 in your pockets versus the $1,000 you have to give to the government? You're focused on the wrong thing. Okay? Grow the business smartly. And with that, I'm out of here, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.